During this course, we will look at 11 categories of disorders when studying abnormal psychology. Each of the 11 categories represents a clinically significant disturbance in behavior, emotional regulation, and cognitive function that reflect biological, psychological, or developmental processes. Stress, anxiety, mood disorders and suicide, somatoform and dissociative disorders, eating disorders and obesity, personality disorders, substance-related disorders, sexual variance, abuse, and dysfunctions, schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders, neurocognitive disorders, disorders of childhood and adolescence. Each of these categories of dysfunction carry a combination of burdens and challenges for the field of mental health and psychological science. You might well ask what makes these conditions deviate from the range of experience one would consider to be normal. Generally, abnormality is diagnosed based upon the following criteria. The person is suffering. The person's behavior is maladaptive. The person's behavior is statistically rare or deviant. The person's behavior violates some social norms. The person's behavior causes social discomfort. Or the person's behavior is perceived as irrational or unpredictable. The 11 categories of disorders and the conditions within those categories have come to be understood as the result of a research-oriented approach based on scientific observation and the scientific method. And the ongoing commitment to research requires strong assessment techniques to support credible diagnosis. There are two major classification systems in use today, and the goal of both is to provide reliable and valid information about the characteristics, course, prevention, and treatment of mental disorders. The International Classification of Disorders, or the ICD-10, is widely used abroad and is the system chosen by the World Health Organization. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-5, is the classification system produced and used in the United States. The fifth revision of the DSM has a greater emphasis on developmental processes that suggest new possibilities for researching disorders in new and potentially fruitful ways. However, the global application of the ICD-10 demands that practitioners be fluent in the use of both classification methods. Among the great hopes of the two systems is that the suffering of those who are diagnosed might be eased. It is also hoped that a system of classification and diagnosis might combat the stigma attached to mental illness. Unfortunately, it seems that avoidance and fear of persons with mental illness persist, in spite of the long efforts to improve their care and quality of life. I look forward to exploring these important areas of study with you throughout the coming weeks. Whether or not your professional futures lead you to work in the field of mental illness, progress is made whenever more of us can take our place among those who care to understand the unique burdens of mental illness. And hopefully, as a result of our undertakings, more of those persons who suffer will find their way to the happy and productive lives we all strive to enjoy.